evening, and welcome to the Anderson Township Zoning Committee meeting of October 22nd, 2012. And our first order of business, can I have approval of the agenda, please?
Move that the agenda for October 22nd, 2012 be approved.
A second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And can we get approval of the minutes, please?
Similarly, I move that the minutes for September 24th, 2012 be approved as written.
How about as amended?
As amended, is there an amendment in it?
Yeah, that we got an
Email
email.
amendment.
Did I get missing?
There were just some grammatical corrections.
Okay, sorry. As amended.
Okay. We have a second, please.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then item number 3 is case number 1, 1996, Anderson, a major modification to final development plan filed by Triversity on behalf of Mercy Healthplex to modify signage located at 7495 State Road, Zone 00 Planned Office District. Now, Paul, do you want me to read the next one too, and we'll just go
Yes,
right
we're going to
over?
hear item number 3 and number 4 together.
And we're going to do number 4 at the same time. It's case 1, 2005 Anderson, a major modification to the final development plan filed by Triversity on behalf of Mercy Hospital Anderson to modify signage located at 7500 State Road, Zone 00 Planned Office District. Paul, can we have the staff summary, please?
Yes, and then we had 2 members that weren't here last month.
Right.
You,
Mr. Chairman, I was not here last month, but did get a copy of the audio tape, listened to the audio tape earlier, so I'm prepared to hear the case.
Mr. Chairman, same as Matt. I wasn't here last month, but I listened to the audio tapes, and I'm fully prepared to participate tonight. So.
Does anybody have a problem? Okay. Paul?
Okay, so the request tonight is again to modify signage on both the hospital property and the Healthplex property. The signage package includes wall signage as well as freestanding signage on both properties. And there are variance requests, and the variance requests are primarily, well actually the variance requests are only for the freestanding signs. This case was continued from last month, so we won't go through the entire history as we did last month. However, the zoning commission requested that some changes be made to the plans as far as the number of signs, the area of the freestanding signs. The wall signage wasn't necessarily at issue, but the freestanding signs, the number, the size of the freestanding signs, as well as the submission of revised site plans and landscaping plans. And just to recap briefly, the existing signage on both properties, again, this is State Road here, and this is 5 Mile Road. This is the hospital property and the Healthplex property. Existing, there is a freestanding sign at the main entrance off of State Road, a campus ID sign at the intersection of 5 Mile State Road, and then a freestanding sign at the entrance off of 5 Mile Road. For the Healthplex property, there is a freestanding sign at the entrance off of State, and also a freestanding sign at the entrance off of 5 Mile. And we did not include the wall signage in this, in the PowerPoint presentation. However, it is in your packet if you need to refer back to the wall signage to remember what those look like, or I can pull up the PowerPoint from last month if you need that. The proposed signage, again, what is different from last month is that at Gate A, which is off of State, and Gate B, there was a proposal for 3 separate freestanding signs. One for the hospital identification, one for an emergency identification off of 5 Mile Road, same for off of State Road, and then a separate sign that labeled Gate A and a separate sign that labeled Gate B. So essentially there were 3 freestanding signs at both entrances off of State and on 5 Mile. And then there was 1 freestanding sign proposed at 5 Mile and State. However, it was proposed at 150 square feet. All of the freestanding signs have been modified and reduced in size. They're proposed to be 1 sign at each of those locations, and the size of those has been reduced to 103 square feet. whereas currently at the entrance off of State is 66 square feet. They are proposing to increase that to 103 square feet. In Gate B, same, it was existing 66 square feet, and they are proposed to go up to 103 square feet. And then the primary identification sign at the intersection currently is 119 square feet, and they're proposed to reduce that to 90 square feet. These are the existing signs for the hospital property, and then the sign in the left-hand corner of the slide is the Mercy Healthplex and Cincinnati Children's sign, and this is the sign that's at the 5 Mile entrance. To give you a perspective of the campus in general, this is the hospital campus, again 5 Mile Road and State Road. This is the main entrance. This is a right in, right out off of 5 Mile. This is the Healthplex property, and again we place these in the PowerPoint so that you could get a sense of the street frontage both along 5 Mile as well as on State. Very large properties with extensive amount of frontage, and in the zoning resolution it allows for multiple signs per 400 feet of frontage. So as far as the number of signs, you're allowed to use one street frontage, not both, for corner lots. But if you do the math, they could have multiple signs. They are required every 175 feet. So again, they're proposing 3 signs for the hospital property and 2 signs for the Healthplex property. This is a chart, again, of what is existing and what is proposed, which is what we went over. The Healthplex property, again, there's the proposal is 94.5 square feet, where the existing is 37. So as far as compliance, the proposed wall signs are compliant with the zoning resolution, and there's actually a reduction in the square footage of the existing for the proposed, which in the proposed is 220, it's being reduced by 223 square feet, so quite substantial. Variances are being requested for the size of the freestanding signs as well as actually the application's been modified for just the size of the square feet of the signs. So in an office zoning district, you're allowed up to 32 square feet, and on the hospital property, they're proposing 90 square feet. Well, let me make sure I'm not giving you the wrong numbers and getting the, is that right? Yes. We can go back to the chart. 90 square feet for the hospital, and then 83 square feet. Again, the same variance is being requested for the Healthplex property. So staff is of the opinion that the variances should be approved for the following reasons. Also, staff is recommending that the modification to the development plan be approved, as the proposed sign improvements are consistent with the approving resolution of the hospital and the Healthplex properties. The improvements are appropriate based on the street frontage of both 5 Mile and State. Also, 5 Mile is a divided, limited access highway with a speed limit of 50 miles per hour in this particular area. And although this is an office zone district, when you compare it to other signs, freestanding signs in the immediate vicinity, especially in the E-retail zoning district, the E-retail zoning district allows you to go up to 100 square feet. And staff was of the opinion that these are consistent with the signs in the immediate vicinity, especially the immediate north Anderson, or immediate to the south Anderson Town Center site, where those signs are 100 square feet. Just a recap of the proposed signage of the freestanding signs. I'll be happy to answer any questions. There are landscaping plans as well in your packet.
Any questions for Paul from the board? Can we have a proposal from the applicant, please? Or a statement from them?
Good evening. I'm Greg Herron with Trivarsity Construction, and good to be back again this month. Basically, we certainly listened to the commission last month and have worked with your staff to reduce the quantity of signs and the size of signs. Also to provide approval from the county engineer for the signs that are in the right-of-way, providing landscape plans for the signage, and also a picture within the packet of what the signage would look like when illuminated at night. I know that was a concern as well. So we've provided all that information. There's also some, on the Healthplex signage, I think some confusion on the signage where it said Healthplex twice, so I think we've addressed that issue as well. So basically, I think we have listened to the commission and responded with solutions that hopefully address your questions from last month.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I just have one question. On the
Ann?
landscape plans, the signs right now are located in beds, and they typically contain an awful lot of annuals. They do a lot of tulips and geraniums and so forth. And I noticed the landscape plans are, some juniper, more kind of, is the thought that they're getting away then from the annuals, the planting of the annuals? And
They
just
will,
going with-
they will still have some planting of annuals, but they wanted to have some greenery year-round.
Okay, right.
Was,
Yeah, I just was curious because there's no beds marked, for planting for annuals, so there really isn't any space for them.
right, I know they mentioned they still would do some annuals, though, with their landscaping.
Yeah, because they do a very
Contractor.
nice job of it. I'd hate to see that go away, I guess.
Okay.
That's my point.
I will share that with them.
Anybody
Yes.
else? Chad?
Yes, there is no, these are freestanding signs. There's nothing in the way of any brick and mortar underneath them, correct?
That is correct.
So I gather then you're going, all the area around them, you're going to be keeping clear of any growth whatsoever?
Yes, tall growth.
So the plantings that are here will have to be a few feet away, I gather, and you're just going to, okay. This is a matter of curiosity. The Mercy Healthplex that is so prominent in the other sign that clearly identifies it as different from the hospital, is it here on the other one? Don't you anticipate more confusion now that people won't, new people won't know which is the Healthplex and which is the hospital? It struck me as unusual the last time that it seemed like you were making it more complex rather than less.
Well, I certainly am a contractor, not a sign design expert,
All
but
right, I'm just curious.
the sign design experts have come up with the design, and I guess I trust their judgment on their expertise on the sign design, so.
No other question.
I just wanted, for clarification purposes, on the sign on 5 Mile Road to the hospital is located in the right-of-way, and there is correspondence in your packet regarding the county engineer's office allowing that sign to stay. And then the sign on 5 Mile into the Healthplex, and the applicant has been in conversation with the township regarding moving a couple portions of the township fence on 5 Mile to have better visibility of that sign, and the township is in support of that as well. So
Yeah, real quick, though, that's not at our expense. That would be at the applicant's expense.
It is, but actually, we may want to do that to save the boards for repairs to the fence because it's weathered, so
Okay.
either way, we're going to work with them to do that.
Okay. Anybody else?
Nope.
We have a motion, please?
I would make a motion to approve Case 1-1996 Anderson, which is a major modification of the final development plan for the property at 7495 State Road.
We have a second?
I'll second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Warwick?
Aye, or yes?
Mr. Van Zandt?
Yes.
Mr. Kennard?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Heskett?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Then I would also make a second motion
Okay,
that we approve Case 1-2005 Anderson, which is a major modification to the final development plan for the property at 7500 State Road.
we have a second?
I'll second that, thanks.
Call the roll again, please.
Mr. Warwick?
Yes.
Mr. Van Zandt?
Yes.
Mr. Kennard?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Heskett?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
The second time. And now we have case number 5. It's case 7-2008 Anderson, a major modification to the final development plan filed by EME Fence Company to modify an accessory structure, parking and landscaping located at 5060 Batavia Pike, Zone D, Retail, NH PUD. We have a Somebody from staff, please.
Yes, this is the site in question. Again, this is Batavia Road or State Route 32, Signal Hill Lane, and the site in question is the one with the star, and this is the Little Miami River. The surrounding zoning, the green represents H riverfront zoning, the yellow represents single family, which is A, and the red represents E, which is retail. And this zoning on the parcel is E and H, as you can tell. It has a split zoning district, E and H, and it's also a PUD. And again, the request is to grant a major modification to, this was originally heard several years ago, and the applicants are bringing the plans back to you for consideration of completion of Phase 1 and modification of some of the original conditions that were placed on the original PUD. This is the existing and proposed, essentially. If you'll recall, the request was for a storage building to enclose the outside storage of products for EME fencing. And then there was a proposal to remove, there are two other existing structures in the front of the property, to remove those, to modify the parking area and create a new parking area and to build a new office building. Due to a number of circumstances, the applicants are bringing a modified plan back to you again for your consideration. They're proposing the shed or the storage building in the back has been completed. They are proposing to remove this structure here in the front and create a parking area and keep the third structure on the property until at some point in the future. And if changes do come about and they are able to do changes in the future, bring that back to you for consideration. So we'll go through the history of what was approved. Well, these are the site photos. This is the existing EME building where their current offices are, the new storage building in the back, and this is the other structure that is proposed for demolition for a new parking area. This is looking down 32 toward the Beachmont Levee. This is just looking at the existing storage area and the existing parking that's in place that's directly off of 32. So in 2008 is when the PUD was approved and was granted by the Zoning Commission, and this was to construct the new 11,655 square foot storage structure, which you saw in the foreground of the pictures. And then also as approved, that was during the first phase. The second phase was to include a new 1,500 square foot office building with related parking, landscaping, lighting, etc. These were the conditions that were placed, 1 through 8. It was compliance with the plan. The plan shall be reviewed by staff, compliance with the zoning resolution, shall comply with requirements of the other agencies, a letter of approval by Public Works for the building submitted to the Township, release of final occupancy. And the final occupancy has not been given on the building in the back because of working through this issue here. The final plans of the new office building shall include a mixture of building materials, and obviously the final office building has not been constructed. There was a condition regarding the impervious surface ratio not to be greater than 0.75. The freestanding sign shall be removed. The property owner shall provide land to the rear of the property for the Little Miami Trail extension, and that has been transferred. And then construction, the final development proposal shall begin within 3 years, and obviously that has not taken place. So with the request before you tonight is one, to a modified Phase 1, and then also a modification of the applicable conditions that would not apply with the completion of Phase 1. There were a number of variances that were requested, and some of them are still applicable to the Phase 1 that's before you, some are not, and those are listed in the staff summary. Most of those were in regards to parking, just due to the nature of their business, which is primarily off-site. They have some customers, but few. The majority of their parking is for employees. The majority of their customer base, they go to the site, give estimates, and their customers, their type of business isn't necessarily like a retail business where you have them, customers coming to the site. So when we looked at what how many parking spaces they were required, we came up with a minimum of 29, and they were proposing 8. And a variance was granted for the number of spaces in the original PUD. And second variance request is for parking aisles to be paved, and they are requesting that this be gravel until the spring, when they can do asphalt, because they don't feel that they will be prepared to do asphalt this fall. They feel like, as far as timing as the permitting go, that the asphalt plants may close. Fencing in the front, and again, there was a variance for fencing the previous time, as well as a sidewalk along the frontage, and then also other parking-related items. So in reviewing the modification, again, same as before, when you approved the PUD, it was the Anderson plan and the Anderson Trails plan. The Anderson Trails plan, again, there was the Little Miami Trail extension in the back, and that is still moving forward with potential construction next year. And there has been a transfer of land between the applicants and the Hamilton County Park District. That has all taken place. As far as the sidewalk along Batavia Pike, the applicant is requesting a variance until final completion of their project. They did not want to put that in and then have it torn back out. As far as the Anderson plan, again, the same use as before, and it was determined at the original PUD approval in 2008 that it was consistent with the Anderson plan. So, based on this, staff is of the opinion that the Phase 1 before you should be approved. It's consistent, again, with the Trails Plan and the Comprehensive Plan. It's consistent with the current zoning of the property. The use is compatible with the surrounding property. The size and physical features are adequate for protection of surrounding properties. Completion of Phase 1, again, keeping the storage structure intact, demolishing the office building to the left, replacing that with parking, and that should be complete the first part of next year with the completion of the asphalt parking area. And then it's recommended that instead of putting a time frame of coming back to you or that the project should be completed within 3 years, staff is recommending that Phase 1 be completed as submitted to you, and then any future phases be brought back before you as a modification instead of having that time limitation on there. The time limitation has, well, it's put them in a predicament. We have not been able to final the building in the back because we couldn't final it based on the conditions of the original PUD approval. And again, the other recommendations that are before you. Again, the conditions, recommended conditions, substantial compliance with the plan, and similar conditions as approved before. And also the variance criteria. So I'll put it back on the site plan. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions for?
Well, the only question I've got is the dumpster behind this that's in the photographs. Is
Right. That's a construction dumpster. It's just temporary.
That's temporary. Okay.
Mhm.
I had just one question, Paul. I think I was not here when this case was originally considered. So the condition number 6 of that approval had to do with the freestanding signage. Is the billboard on their property?
I believe it is, but I'll let the applicant respond to that.
I mean, I guess my question is, there's comments about freestanding signage and whether or not, that was included in that or that was addressed.
At one time, I think, Ann, they were going to take that down. Is that right, Matt? Do you remember this? I think at one time they said that they would not renew the contract or something with the billboard.
Harry, I don't recall that.
Okay,
I mean, I know that's something, Harry, that we did ask
right.
the American Legion Post
Right.
recently to do.
There is a freestanding sign, which you cannot see it in these photos, but there is one just to the right of the main building. But I will let the applicant speak to that.
And is that sign, Paul, in conformance with the zoning resolution?
No, just because of its proximity to the right-of-way. And
Size and height-wise?
I don't know about the height.
Okay.
It's not a very large sign, so size-wise, it's okay. As far as height, our height requirements would be 15. I'm not sure on the height of the freestanding sign.
Anybody else? Can we hear from the applicant, please?
Hello, I'm Scott Rogers. I'm the architect for the project. We also have EME representatives if I need a little historical help. We're just trying to get Phase 1 kind of defined and closed at this point. I don't know if there's any specific questions you might have.
You gonna,
Yeah, I guess the first question I've had, is the billboard on the EME property?
Yeah,
And is there an intent not to renew that lease when it comes due, and when does it come due?
That lease is, I believe it's every 10 years.
wait a minute, could you come up and state your name and?
We're just recording it,
Yeah,
and it
well,
doesn't pick up.
You
unless
you
you're
get a
on the
chance to be
microphone.
on television. I'm sure you really care, but.
The billboard, I'm Ron Eman, president of EME Fence. The billboard, I guess, in question is through a sign company, so that is on our property. I assume it would be on the, I guess, the west-south front portion of the property. And when it was installed with all permits and regulations at that time. So if that's the question. Renewal, that comes up, I believe we sign that about every 10 years. It's been re-signed, and I don't know the exact date of that, though.
Would you consider not renewing that lease when it comes back due?
That question's never come up, so. That was never a concern, or I've never been asked that.
Anything else from anybody?
I don't.
I'm just gonna make a comment about that sign. I would really much rather see a picture of the other sign that's really a non-compliance, that's the,
That is correct, right? There's a sign right here.
Correct.
Okay.
And that sign is coming down.
That is the
Yeah,
one
that is coming
referenced
down,
in the
yes.
letter that is
That's the
proposed
one
to
I was-
come down.
That's the one that's
Okay.
coming down.
Which one?
Well, you can't see it from the photos we took.
It's on the west side of the property.
Oh, it's on the west side of the property.
Or I'm sorry, that's the east side.
east side, right?
I believe it's right here in these trees, right?
It is.
Okay.
So are you gonna erect another sign then? And-
Well, eventually, when we get to our final stage, yes.
Okay,
And then that would go under, or be approved by you.
all right.
But as of now, we're just going to utilize the existing signage that's on the building.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
Okay, just one more question for the applicant. And I'm not sure exactly how to phrase it, other than to say, if a condition of the approval was that the billboard lease would not be renewed the next time it came due, what would your thoughts be on that?
Well, I guess we would have to take that into consideration, but that was never, we've never been asked that before, so I would have to think about that, so.
Yeah. Fair enough.
from a practical point of view, when the new office is built, it will be where the parking lot is shown now, which will be very close to that billboard. So there may be an issue with the foundations of the new building that might require it coming down at that time. We just don't know, haven't gone there yet. But, the concept for the final state of this would be a building right near the base of that. So we'd certainly look at it closely when we design that building, but that's on Phase 2.
Can I, from a financial standpoint, how much would something like that set you back? I mean, are you talking $1,000 a year, or, what your...
Probably, you'd probably be looking at maybe about $2,500 a year.
I have one question. On this application or this modification, you're leaving that existing building, the older building in place. What is your timetable for replacing that building as part of the original application?
That's what I can't answer that right now. That's why we're here. We're trying to redo our original plan.
I guess let me rephrase the question. Are you looking to do that in the future still? Or is it
Yes,
something that's off
yes.
the table completely?
No, it's
Okay.
not off, it's still on the table. It's just going to have to be at a later date.
Okay.
That's why, once we do, we'll come back to you and hopefully start this process again.
The original plan had a tighter time frame, but that was before the economy did a hiccup,
that's what I was thinking
and
about.
it's a little unpredictable, so.
Well, do we have a motion?
We need to hear from the audience.
We have some discussion.
I forgot about that again. We'll stop it. Do we have anything from anybody in the audience concerning this? Hearing none, we move on, please, and if we have a motion?
Could we have some discussion?
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chairman, just some discussion. I think earlier, thank you, gentlemen,
Yeah.
for your input. Just some discussion about the billboard. Your question to me was whether I had a memory that we had taken any action on the sign. I think, in fact, that we did that probably 6 months ago with a property on Clough Pike. And,
Right.
being part of that conversation, I think what we're trying to do is, with some of these corridors, improve appearance and some of those kind of things, and hearing maybe the estimate of what the value of the monthly income on that property, it sounds like it was kind of in line with what we heard with that other property. But regardless, I think, looking at the site as a whole, I could be supportive of a motion that would include, at the expiration of the current term, that we see that not renewed, and I guess that would require the installer to remove the sign. Other than that, I think the economic arguments, I'm agreeable with some of those. I think I'm a little uneasy, I'll just say for the record, about an indefinite term on that. I guess it's a Phase 3, Paul, the third building. But, I can live with that. I'd like to see the progress being made and get some of these occupancy permits, I guess, issued. Is that what's
Well,
at
I think
stake
our
here?
recommendation is that instead of putting a time limit on future phases, that it stopped with Phase 1, and then if there are any future phases, of course, that would have to come back to you as a modification again.
It's pretty intense there right now, with the previous buildings and the new building to the rear, so. And I appreciate the compliance with the other items, the property associated with the trail, some of those types of things. It's good to hear there's progress there. That's all I have.
I have one statement, and I'm going to kind of disagree with Matt a little bit. I think we ought to wait on the billboard to make that part of it. The economy is not great, and I think $2,500 a year, there's a reason they had to come back to us, and there's a reason they didn't build that building. And if they're going to come back to us with Phase 3, and we have a, let's say, 7 years to go on the contract, I think that hopefully the economy will be turned around by then, and maybe we could revisit the billboard at that time. I just hate to put a stipulation on, $2,500 a year, and they know going in that they're going to be, in 5, 6, 7 years, they're going to be missing that. Maybe I'm wrong, but everything else I agree with, so, sorry, Matt.
Well, and I guess I would disagree with you,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair. The township is pumping a lot of money into that area. You're within spitting distance of the Little Miami River, which is a scenic corridor river. I think that this is an opportunity, and, I'm sorry that there would be some income loss, but I don't think that $2,500, which is, $200 a month, is going to make or break this business. And so I would be inclined that that there be provisions that have come down at the end of the lease term.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
only reason I went to this, and I am, if you look at the second, you look at the Speedway sign, and I just, that's the only reason I said it, is the Speedway sign, and I'm sure that's in compliance. But we're not gonna go to Speedway and say, hey, the next time they come, because I'm not so sure that's all in the township, is it?
Yes.
It is, I think it
So-
is in the township, and I don't think it's compliant with today's regulations. But if Speedway came in today,
Right.
first of all, I'd have to abstain because they're a client. But
Okay.
if they came in
Well,
today,
I saw
and they
some-
weren't a client, I would say to them, gee, you're going to go with a ground mount sign. And, if you
Right.
come in and you're asking for something different than the norm of what our zoning resolution allows,
Right.
then it's a give and a take process. And I think that billboard coming down would be a huge, huge improvement to that portion of the 32 corridor. I really do.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with Ann and Matt on that. The aesthetic cost to the township of that billboard is far more than the economic income of the business owner there. I mean, personally, I would love to be able to sell a billboard rights to my property too, but I just don't think
Me
it's
too, I agree.
anything going to be seriously lost by that. So I would be in favor of imposing that
Chad?
condition on the,
Well, I don't want to throw another wrinkle into this, but Ian, I believe this is a small business, and I'm not at all certain that $250 or $2,500 a year, $25,000 over the length of the term of the lease, which you can rely upon to do various things with, isn't going to be something of sufficient merit. They are, on the one hand, doing things which improve the appearance of the remainder of the area, and while it's an eyesore, I have a little more difficulty here where the area generally isn't the best looking. Saying to them, gee, it's great that you're doing this, but we're going to take away some of the financial underpinning that you might have to be able to help yourself do this or to help build it. So, and quite honestly, I think that this is the type of activity, fencing, that does rise, ebb and flow with the climate of the economy. So I'm a little less than,
All right.
I look at it and I say, gee, I'd love to get rid of that, but then as soon as I turn around and realize that you're taking away some of the financial backdrop that the company has probably relied upon for a time, then I have some questions, so I'm sort of on the borderline.
All right. Did we get a motion?
I will make a motion that we approve case 7-2008 Anderson, a major modification of the final development plan for the property at 5060 Batavia Pike. And I would add, in addition to staff's condition, I would add that relative to the variance from section 171.9, which is, I believe, number 6, that the fencing to be installed be consistent with the detail that was provided on the amended final development plan. And I would also add the condition that the billboard that is on the subject property be removed at the end of this lease term, and that a copy of that lease be provided to Anderson Township for review, so we can make sure that that lease term is met.
We have a second?
I second.
Call roll, please.
Before we call a roll on this, so that we might find some sort of a middle ground, could we perhaps say that we've been seconded, I know, but I would...
No, we've been seconded. Can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Ward?
No?
Mr. Van Zandt?
Yes.
Mr. Canard?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Metzger?
Yes. Sorry, Chad, but
Well, my suggestion was going to be that we just allow for a 10-year period, and at the end of the close of 10 years, they would have to take it down, rather than...
Okay, we have case number 6, which is a 3-2012 PUD, a special use zoning certificate and planned unit development request for a Firestone Complete Auto Care, as well as a variance request for landscaping and setback located at 7978 Beachmont Avenue, Zone E, retail, and C, single-family residence. You guys don't have to leave yet. I guess they are anyway.
Well, and I'm trying to get the slide ahead, and my
Yeah.
slide's out of order.
We have a summary from the staff, please.
We do. Again, the site in question is located, or is identified with the star. This is Beachmont Avenue. This is the former Hollywood Video site, the Anderson Operations Center and Fire Station to the west. And then this is Dunkin' Donuts to the east. Just a few other areas of interest to get your bearings. Coldwell Banker West Shell. Across the street is a mix of retail and some office. This is, please.
Cheviot Savings.
Yeah, Cheviot Savings, former, yes, Cheviot Savings. And then Nordic Lane is in the vicinity here. Again, the request is to approve the PUD application for a new Firestone Retail Center, approximately 8,563 square feet, with related parking, landscaping, and lighting improvements. The tract is 1.2 acres, and there's approximately 150 feet of frontage on Beachmont Avenue. The topography is flat, and again, the site was formerly a Hollywood Video. To the north, the zoning is C residence, which is identified in the yellow on the slide. Again, all the red is retail. There are some PUDs in the vicinity, and then there is a sliver of planned office off of Nagel. Again, the proposed development included with the retail center 48 parking spaces. It is proposed to be a complete redevelopment, demolishing the existing building, constructing a new, and we will go through the elevation drawings. As far as history on this site, the original structure that is there now was built in 1955 as a Thriftway grocery store. And the zoning that's currently in place was the same zoning that was in place in 55, with the front portion zoned retail and the rear portion zoned single family. So there was a variance or special zoning certificate that was granted for the rear portion to allow for commercial parking in residentially zoned property for the commercial operation. So there was a variance on file that was granted in 1954 for this site. Just that's why there was a commercial parking back there. So again, and the proposed development is the ratio, impervious surface ratio is 0.77. This is what triggers the PUD. Some of the photos, we'll start down here on the bottom right. This is looking west on Beachmont Avenue across the frontage, and to give you a sense of where the building sits currently on the property as far as its setback. There are variance requests along with this PUD application. This is the Dunkin' Donuts property looking at the back or the side wall of the building. This is standing back in the parking lot looking up toward Beachmont Avenue. Again, the back of the existing Hollywood Video and the back of the fire station. And again, looking toward the east, properties along Nordic Lane. There are, the first two properties are zoned retail and are used for retail. There's Dunkin' Donuts and Strings and Things. And then the next house behind Strings and Things is owned by Time Warner Cable. And then you start the residential properties. This is the proposed site plan. The curb cut on Beachmont Avenue is primarily staying in the same location. Because of the PUD, this has been reviewed by the county engineer's office, who is requesting additional right-of-way be dedicated as part of the PUD application. So you can see on the site plan, a little bit better in your packet than on here, the proposed new right-of-way versus the existing right-of-way. Again, the building itself is also proposed to be constructed and similarly pretty much the same, somewhat in the same location as the existing building. The setback from the property line from the east would be greater, but as far as the front setback, very similar. Again, the parking would be located along the Township property line, and then parking in the rear, which would be located on the C zoning district. So there is a special zoning certificate being requested as well. So I'm going to go a little bit out of order and come back to these slides, but these are the elevation drawings. The front elevation drawing, which has an appearance of a two-story building. The main entrance would be to the left of the Beachmont Avenue facade. This would be the rear portion of the site, or the north elevation. This would be the elevation facing Dunkin' Donuts, and this would be the elevation facing the Beachmont Avenue Fire Station. So there are 4 variances being requested, one for front yard setback. The requirement is 30 feet, and the applicant is requesting, I believe it's 10 feet. Make sure I give you the exact. There's a parking space requirements of the front parking spot should be set back a minimum of 30 feet, and the applicant is requesting a variance due to the dedication of right-of-way. And there is a variance request if the optimum number of, or if the number of parking spaces exceeds the optimum, there is a requirement that additional landscaping be installed, and the applicant is requesting a waiver of this as well. The applicable plans are the Beachmont Corridor Plan, the Beachmont Vision Plan, the Anderson Trails Plan, and the Anderson Plan. So we'll go back to the site plan and we'll discuss those plans. As far as the Beachmont Corridor Plan and the Beachmont Vision Plan, the Corridor Plan calls for access management improvements. Again, there is only one entrance off of Beachmont Avenue, which is primarily in the same location as the current. However, it is being narrowed to be consistent with ODOT's access management plan, whereas currently it's fairly wide. Other components of the corridor plan include cross-access between properties. The applicant is proposing a cross-access to the township property in this general vicinity. And then they are proposing an easement at some time if development were to proceed in the same fashion to the east. The applicant is proposing an easement to facilitate that cross-access to the east if at some point in the future these properties were to ever redevelop as a commercial property, oriented toward Beachmont Avenue. Currently, there is access through the current parking lot to the rear to Hollywood Video. And the applicant is proposing to cut that off. However, they are proposing a pedestrian connection at the township's request to help facilitate pedestrian connection from Beachmont Avenue to the senior center. The township has been working with Firestone as to currently seniors, use this as the primary entrance to the senior center. Been doing this for years, and with Hollywood Video being vacant for 3 years, it's been very, they've gotten into, but it's not the township's property, obviously. And there was a concern with Firestone with keeping that same traffic pattern because of the customers coming and going out of Firestone, as well as cars being serviced and backed in and out of the bays. And there was a concern with having that constant flow of traffic through the parking lot. So the township has a plan and has been working on a plan for the operations center to improve parking and access to the senior center. And so currently, the township is creating a new driveway which is in your staff report, I believe. I think we put it in here. Or no, we have not. We did not put it in here. We'll go back to the aerial and you'll be able to see it a little bit better. So currently, the township is working on an access drive that would take senior center traffic through this general vicinity, wrap around the maintenance building. This is a road maintenance building to provide access to the senior center. This is completely on township property versus taking senior center traffic through someone else's property, essentially. There is not enough room on township property to provide a sidewalk, so that is why there is a proposed sidewalk on Firestone's property. The township requested that this be provided, and they are working with the township to provide this. But this does keep the senior center traffic off of the Firestone property. There is cross-access between properties, though, and again, that's consistent with the corridor plan. And the applicant is also proposing to still allow for some senior center parking back in their number of their excess parking. As far as additional parking for senior center, the township has been working with Forestville, the church off of Nagel Road, to provide a sidewalk connection, and we have entered into agreement with the church to provide parking for senior center on their parking lot, and then a pedestrian access to this side of the senior center, which is actually the same distance as coming from Firestone. and there are other improvements planned for the Operations Center. So, long story short, consistent with the corridor plan. As far as the vision plan calls for an appearance of a two-story building, a mixture of building materials, and in this particular neighborhood of Beachmont Avenue, it does encourage the structures to come closer to Beachmont than the recommended, than the setback of 30 feet. It does recommend a setback of 10 to 15 feet, which the applicant is proposing. The trails plan, again, the pedestrian connection that we had talked about in the rear of the property, as well as the sidewalk, is provided along the frontage of the property. There is one area adjacent to Dunkin' Donuts where there is a gap, and although it is off-site, we're recommending the staff summary that condition be placed that they work with Dunkin' Donuts to provide that gap. There currently are stairs, but there will no longer be stairs once the redevelopment, and it's not handicap accessible anyway, so staff is recommending that they work with, it's this area right through here, work with Dunkin' Donuts just to provide that connection into the parking lot. And Dunkin' Donuts was redeveloped prior, and the redevelopment did not require them to install a sidewalk, so there's no sidewalk across Dunkin' Donuts, but there could be pedestrian connection through the parking lots. As far as the use is concerned, it is consistent with the Anderson plan. And again, the variances relate back to excessive parking. However, as an alternative, they are suggesting and recommending shared parking with the senior center. They are providing screening along the residential zoning line. Again, these solid screen through here is required. There is a dumpster enclosure here, but again, the solid screen is required between commercial and retail and residential uses, which they are providing. The front parking spot was here, which slightly encroaches into that 30 feet. And again, the front setback for the building. So I'm sure I've left something out, but I'll stop there, and if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Anybody have any questions for staff?
I don't.
And,
Can I just ask one?
Sure.
So, Paul, just so I understand, it's a little bit hard with the existing Hollywood building and the Firestone building and the property lines. Single-family residences are, the first one on the plan is obviously Dunkin' Donuts, and then the next one is the Time Warner?
No, it's strings and things.
Strings, okay. Which ones of these on here are single-family residential?
Let's start with the, this building does extend farther back than the current Hollywood
Okay.
video. So we'll start with that. This is a little bit better shot.
Right.
And can you see the Time Warner? I think this one's Time Warner, so this is the first single-family home here. You can get an idea. The dumpster enclosure would be actually line up with the first single-family home. This one here is owned by Time Warner, Strings and Things. This Strings and Things is zoned retail. And then Time Warner is actually zoned, it's actually zoned, I think that's, partially, right. This is where the zoning line actually is.
Enforce that one.
man,
And again, the first single-family home is here.
Okay, thank you.
All right, real quick, is this the old county zoning, I guess 54? It used to be
Yes.
old county zoning.
Yes.
Anybody else have any questions for staff? May we have is there somebody here for a presentation from Firestone, please? Can we get your name and et cetera?
Hi, my name is Mike Timko with Wolpert. I'm the civil engineer for the Firestone project. Paul did a very good job explaining all of the little bits and pieces of the project. Probably a couple things that is to add to what he's already mentioned. One of the things that Firestone is willing to do as far as the sidewalk off the back southwest portion of the property, instead of having some kind of easement or something on that property, they're willing to donate that property to the township to where that sidewalk will become township property versus some easement on private land. The one landscape variance that we're asking deals with some interior landscaping. And at one point in time, about midway down the building on the west side of the property, we had an interior island, and the parking spaces were actually shifted another parking space further south or closer to the right-of-way. And through the recommendations of Paul and I believe Steve Severs also, we actually removed that landscape area, put it to the south, shifted the parking spaces up one to provide a little bit more green space up along the frontage versus more interior. So.
There was a parking space originally proposed here, and
Correct.
they shifted this direction. So instead of having an interior landscape island here, shifted everything to the north.
Correct.
To provide a little bit more green on Beachline.
Yeah. And the building is shifted further west than the existing Hollywood Video, which is essentially on the property line. And all of that property to the east of the building actually will be grass. So it's not going to be a paved surface. It'll be an impervious or a pervious surface. Other than that, I think Paul did a good job explaining our proposal.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Just one.
Chad?
The painted masonry, how long a period of time does that last? And it has the appearance of brick, is that what it's meant to?
Yes.
And how long does that last for? Is it sort of semi-permanent?
I'm not an architect. I don't know. I know the Firestone in general is trying to do a better job at maintaining their facilities. That's part of this development. They are replacing different facilities around the area to try and have a nicer, more friendly style building. So I can't answer the length because I don't know.
At one time, I remember
Yeah,
years
that
ago.
was one of my questions. You must have been reading my notes.
You used to be concerned about, and I can understand peeling paint is not one of the most wonderful things to see on each month, so.
Ian?
Yeah, I guess my question to that was, and I had actually written that down on my list, was whether or not they'd looked at going with tinted block as opposed to painting it.
I would have to ask. I could not answer that.
I mean, the tinted block obviously is more expensive to do up front, but obviously it doesn't need to be painted, and there's no ongoing maintenance issue, so that's something for the commission to think about. May I continue with my questions?
Oh,
Mr.
sure.
Giroir? Okay, great. Would there be any outdoor storage or display at this location?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay. And you may or may not know this one. The store where they previously were on Beachmont, do they own that location, or do you know what the plans are for that location?
I do not know if they're owners or if they lease or rent it. I don't. I know they were going to abandon that site. You know, they would either go back to the owner or sell it. I know they were not going to continue operations there.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much abandoned right now, right? So it would be really good to know what we could do with that.
Yeah, you were 5 feet underwater there once.
Right. The wall packs, particularly on the east side of the building and the one at the northeast corner, are those shielded?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And then let's talk about the dumpster location, which is right next to the single-family residential. How about moving that to the northwest corner? I think you'll still be able to get access to that. I mean, those spaces aren't going to be used at the hours the dumpster is going to be located, but we can't have that adjacent to the single-family residential.
Right now, we have it placed within the commercial zoning district, and if I'm understanding you correctly, you're wanting us to place it into the residential zone on the far northwest. I guess as long as you guys are okay with that as an additional variance, I guess that would be.
Paul, are you, I mean, I would rather see it back there on quote residential property than, lining up in the backyard of a single-family residence.
Right.
And I understand why you placed it there, but from a practical standpoint, I mean, we're treating that property as if it is zoned commercial.
Paul, would you have any Would staff have any problem with that?
No, I think that's fine, as long as there's an appropriate enclosure, because the pedestrian connection would be through here. So as long as it's an appropriate
I'd want to see
enclosure.
the same enclosure that they're proposing, which is masonry
Right.
with the solid gates with wheels on the gates, which I think is
Yeah.
great, and it's going to be painted to match the building, so that would be fine. I would just rather see it relocated. And then relative to that eastern property line, then from the building to the north corner of the property, I know you've got some landscaping and so forth planned along there, but would you be opposed to putting up a 6-foot solid fence along there as well?
Could you please restate the length of where you'd want to put that?
Yeah, from the northeast corner of the building up to the northeast corner of the property?
Through here?
Correct. To provide a solid barrier for the residents?
There is existing residential fences there. I guess, I don't know if this is a question for you or Paul, or how would we handle those existing residential fences if we were to do that? I'm not saying I'm opposed to it, I'm just questioning how to handle that.
The existing fences are chain link, I believe.
Correct, and they're all, I think they're standard
4
4
foot,
foot.
probably, yeah. I mean, obviously, yours would be on your side and theirs would be on their side. There may be
The only thing is that some of those fences actually do have gates in there to access the parking area for pedestrians. Some of them walk through to the shopping center. I don't know what impacts that would be. I don't know if that would be the preference, or I don't know.
Yeah,
But
I
I
believe there's
understand.
two or three pedestrian gates, and there is one vehicular gate back off that area. The vehicular gate's on that first residential property, and the other pedestrian or man-style gates are the next couple lots north.
We could get EME back here and see what they suggest.
Where would that be?
The what, I'm sorry? Yeah.
The,
I don't think it
the
would.
vehicular,
There's a pedestrian gate here.
yeah, with a vehicular gate.
Oh, do we have any pictures of that back there, on that side?
No, we didn't.
I don't know if it shows
I
up on
may.
your
I
one.
could, well, if you'll bear with me. Wrong direction. Probably under there. So this is Strings and Things here. This is the Time Warner Building. This is the first residential house here.
think
I
just-
know there's
yeah,
a pedestrian
right
gate
there.
there. I don't know about these two properties here.
Yeah, the one right on the corner where that black car is on the corner, just in front of that black car.
Right
Right
there,
there's a, yeah, that's a man gate.
Better, that's a car gate, a vehicular gate?
Vehicular, yeah. No, that one right there is a person.
Or where the, okay,
The white car on the far right.
Right,
Just
okay.
to the right of that is the vehicular gate.
yeah, it's been there forever.
Sorry, I know we have more pictures on site, but I'm not sure where.
Can you go down, Paul, to your left? I mean, to the north, I'm sorry. That's to your south, north.
The north is to the left.
Left.
You went to the north, sorry.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying about the screen, but, you know, if they have the gates there, you know, I'm a little concerned about, because there's
Yeah.
nothing there.
Yeah.
Even if you put your trees up, to do a screen there, you're really gonna mess up the people who wanna use the walk gate.
Mhm.
And then also with the vehicular thing with the strings.
That will disappear.
Do what?
That will disappear because the Hollywood, or the Firestone building will come back.
Well, I
farther,
understand
yes.
that, but I mean, when you're gonna do the screening, a lot of that's gonna go away, no matter what you know, if you put trees up.
Yeah, the vehicular gate will be the most impacted.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's gone anyway, for the length of the building.
Mhm.
I'm just, hey, this puts a whole new light on it when you say screening, and then they have, pedestrian gates, you know, that, what do you do?
Well, there's some folks here that maybe can
Yeah.
shed some light on that.
Gary? I have one quick question.
Sure, I mean, we're,
Yeah. Do you work open bay or closed bay? So in the summer, you're going to have those bays open? During work?
Yeah, I don't know that.
By
Yeah, they're gonna be on the
EPA,
east side
They have to
anyway.
be open. I'm sorry, OSHA requires
OSHA,
those
unless
bay
they're,
doors have to
unless
be.
they're totally, or unless they're well ventilated. yeah.
My work with a similar type user
Okay.
is that they have to be open except during the winter.
Well, I was just wondering, I was curious as to what the noise level was.
yeah, but they'll be on the east side anyway, so it's not gonna be, they're not gonna be,
Yeah, it's a
Yeah, well,
closed
that-
wall.
I know what you're saying.
When
Get a
you're-
lot of, you get a guy, you know,
You're working with a high-speed,
well, if you're like me working on a car, you get a lot of gosh darn it's. So-
I'm just thinking more in terms of the, I wonder what the noise level would be with something like that. Do you know?
No, I don't have that information.
Just curious.
You know, I'm going to do something. Is there anybody here from the public that'd like to make a comment? Would you like to come up and state your name and address, please? And you know, we're trying to figure out this walk gate, and this kind of thing with the screening. You over there and give your name and address, please? You don't mind?
My name's Judy Doyle, and I'm a partner in Strings and Things Violin Shop at 1221 Nordica Lane. And we had several concerns about the project. Is my concept right that there will no longer be access through their parking lot to our parking lot?
That's correct.
Yes.
That solves some of my concerns, because we have classes in the back of our building, and there are families with children that are there, and I was concerned about a lot of traffic coming through there and maybe being dangerous for the children, so that is good. Another concern regarding the same thing, and that is that during construction and demolition of the building, we're very concerned about the safety of the people who use our back parking lot. And are there precautions that will be taken during that period of time? If so, what?
You know, with any building demolition, you know, there is OSHA standards and different demolition standards that they have to adhere by. And, you know, generally, a building's not allowed to fall onto somebody else's property. They have to kind of implode it into themselves. You know, and they will have, you know, construction fencing to help keep any kids or any passerbys from just coming into the construction site, so.
And in back of your building, there will be no road. It's all going to be grass. Is that correct?
Along the east side, yes.
Yes, yes. And I was also concerned about damage to our parking lot pavement from heavy equipment during the tear down and construction, so they will not be going in our parking lot or on our property, am I correct?
They should not be. If for some reason they were to need to use your property, they would be expected to replace in kind or replace whatever they damaged to the condition it was prior or better.
Okay. And what is the date proposed for the demolition and for the construction to begin?
They're wanting to be able to start construction still this winter. A specific date's not actually set, but they would like to do it sooner than later.
Okay.
You know, this meeting was actually a big part of that, so.
Okay, and also, I'm wondering, right now, our parking lot drains down towards the property that you're talking about, and we have had problems with stormwater backup. We were one of the victims of the June 2011 horrible stormwater backup, which was a nightmare for our business, and needless to say, we don't want that to happen again. Will there be any changes in the elevation that would mess up our water flow now?
Elevation change? No, not really. One of the provisions that we are doing, the existing property does not have a detention system in it, and with our proposed development, there will be a detention system installed, so we will be releasing less water than what's there now, so hopefully kind of that downstream effect will be lessened.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we don't really want a dumpster adjoining our property either. Thank you.
That's great. Is anybody else? Do you have anything else?
Nope, I don't think so.
Paul? Any other questions from the people here?
Could I ask the applicant one other question, if there's any?
Sure.
You've got a large island on the south end of, the six-space island there, yeah, striped out. Is that striped for,
It's kind of a twofold striping. We originally had it as a raised landscape island. We had to take it out for two reasons. One was where the dumpster is now, to access the dumpster. And the other one was for semi-turning radius movements. The semis actually pull straight in towards the senior center, and then they back into the corner on the northeast portion of the building. And their drop-off, there's a little hatched area on the very north end of the building. That is their loading, unloading zone for the semis. So it's maneuverability space.
About how many deliveries do they get? What, one truck a week? Or, I mean, with semis, I mean, most of them use the box trucks.
Yeah,
And
I
get
think it was
deliveries
one or
multiple
two
times
a
a
week.
day, but
Yeah,
they
I don't
come
think
with
it's a
semi.
high frequency. And
Now,
they're
how
all,
does the semi, I'm sure you put a truck plate on this, how does he get out?
by this same token, he can make the turn back out into the front. It's basically a T movement. It's a little more than a three-point turn, but that's why the striped parking area was required for
I can see why.
all the maneuverability.
Okay.
Anybody else? Is there a motion?
Could I ask one more question?
Sure.
Just a fountain of questions tonight. Do you think your client would have a problem with using the tinted block as opposed to the painting?
I can definitely ask them. I don't know that side of their design operations that well, to be honest with you. I don't know that. I'm sure it comes down to a cost issue. I don't know how much the colored block versus a painted block is.
It's also what Ann's suggesting is, there's also the consideration you might give to the fact that in the long run, whatever they might lose up front, they might save.
The maintenance cycle.
Right.
Yeah.
And it does look nice.
Yeah.
With that then, Mr. Chair, if you're ready for a motion, I would try to make one.
I'm ready.
Okay. I would make a motion then that we approve case 3-2012 PUD for the Firestone Complete Auto Care at 7978 Beachmont Avenue with the provisions contained in the staff report and the following additional conditions, that there would be no outdoor storage or display on the site, that there would be no work done outside of the building, so all work would take place within the enclosed building, that the building would be constructed using tinted masonry block as opposed to painting masonry block, that all of the wall packs on the east and north sides of the building be shielded, and that the dumpster and the proposed enclosure be relocated to the northwest corner of the site from the eastern property line.
And associated variance that goes along with that.
And the associated variances that go along with locating that dumpster and its enclosure in a residential district.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Chad seconds, could we have a call?
Yes.
Mr. Van Zandt?
Yes.
Mr. Canard?
Yes.
Ms. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Hemphill?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
We
now we
need
have
to change
case,
the tape.
What?
We're going to change the tape real
we're
quick.
going to change the tape. This is something I originally did. We're losing everybody. Make us feel good, huh?
You need to get a life.
We ready? No, well, good.
I'm out.
Does everybody have a plan? Okay,
Do we get to keep it?
you do.
You ready? All right, this will be case number 7. Case 2-2012 LUP, adoption of the Ohio Riverfront Area Plan. It's an update. The original Ohio Riverfront Area Land Use Plan was adopted in 2002 and consists of the area south of I-275 to the Ohio River bordered by Cincinnati to the west, and Pierce Township, Ohio, Claremont County to the east. Paul?
Okay, well, that's the first part of my staff summary, so, or the presentation, there's the slide. He
Right.
just described the boundary, so, and
Paul
then...
was in here.
I know, it was
Hey,
good.
you did good.
So, basically, the presentation and the staff report goes along with the summary of the objectives. As Mr. Chairman just stated, this was an update of the original plan. And you see the study area boundaries. As far as the process, in December 2011, the Board of Trustees hired R.W. Armstrong to prepare the Riverfront Plan update. And then shortly following, in January 2012, the process began with the formation of a steering team later that same month. The first public workshop was held in February of 2012, and then throughout the following months, additional insight and evaluation was acquired and the vision process began. This included meetings with our steering team, which was comprised of business owners, residents in the area, key stakeholder groups. They were all part of the steering team, and they met almost monthly. The second public open house was held in May, and then in July, this was when a draft plan was presented to the steering team. And then after the steering team reviewed the first draft, which was in July, a revised draft was prepared, and this was made available to the public via our website, as well as to township committees. And then comments were taken until September 14th, and that is when the draft that is before you was prepared as an adoption draft. So, and I will just briefly go through this. If you have any questions, please stop me, but basically, starting on page 14, There is a summary of the goals and objectives of the plan. There's a goal statement and then objectives of how to implement that goal. The goals and the objectives were giving timeframes, a short-term timeframe of 0 to 3 years, a midterm of 3 to 7, and then a long-term of 7+ years. And as you can see, I'll just go through the goals and hit the highlights. If you have questions along the way, just let me know. So goal number 1 was to enhance and preserve the natural areas, environmentally sensitive lands, and scenic views along the riverfront from the property on top of the hillsides. And these were the objectives to support that goal. Goal 2 is to ensure Anderson Township's regulations and other tools contain the necessary updates to implement the plan. Again, the objectives to support that goal. Goal number 3 was to encourage uses that are year-round, mixed uses, and that promote the area as a destination within Anderson Township, the city of Cincinnati, and the larger region.
Can you do me a favor and go back to 2, just the objectives?
The objectives.
All right, thank
Okay.
you.
Goal number 4 was to attract and retain uses that increase the tax base of Anderson Township while remaining compatible with existing uses and limiting environmental impacts such as noise, light, vibration, and traffic congestion.
Okay, can I ask a question there?
Absolutely.
When, with the, hopefully the Racino going in, will that have any effect on this objective?
On the goal,
Right, and the objective on these in the bottom there.
which one? Work with the,
The develop a marketing packet with the benefits and opportunities.
and incentives to locate. Yes, and actually there was a representative from River Downs on the steering team that had been a
Alright.
part of this process and provided input along the way.
Thank you.
Mhm. Goal number 5 was to provide and plan strong infrastructure that provides for multimodal, safe, and efficient infrastructure infosystem that supports future land use growth. And number 6 is to provide diverse housing options for available land that are compatible with existing development. Housing was a continuation of the discussion started with the comprehensive plan. There was discussion of different housing types in the township, other than large lot, single-family, to provide for baby boomers, but also young professionals. And one of the goals is to identify areas within the entertainment district and along this riverfront area to provide for those types of housing options. And number 7 is to increase public services or assure that public services match the level of growth within the study area. It should actually be assure, not increase. That was actually changed along the process. This is a map of the existing land use. The primary land use in the study area is residential, as you can see, and parks, open space, and green space, which is identified in the lighter shade. The entertainment area was also identified as private recreation, and that was just a land use classification that it was given. However, could be entertainment as well. But, you know, the yellow, again, primarily is single family. The green is either private recreation or open space. We have several large parks within the study area boundary. And then we do have areas that are identified as vacant land, however, they could also be classified as residential.
Can you go back one, and then the purple there, is that the,
This
what would that?
This is Hilltop,
Okay, and then is that further down also?
right over here. Hilltop, and this here is Cargill.
Okay,
This is Washington Marine.
all right. And
This is
the
also-
dog park is where?
The dog park is right here.
Okay, there,
Mhm.
okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Okay. And then a component of this plan was the future land use map. And again, this took the recommendations from the 2011 comp plan and refined them. So some of these are recommended changes from the comp plan, which was adopted in 2011. And again, as a recommendation from the comp plan in 2011 was to look at this area in more detail on a parcel-by-parcel basis. So some of the areas that have remained the same are the entertainment area, although it has been expanded somewhat based on property that has been purchased by Pinnacle, which is the current owner of River Downs. This area was identified as light industry. The orange color is transitional residence, and this was a change. This was consistent with the 2011 comp plan. It looked at the township and places where land could support a higher density style of development. And this was identified in the 2011 comp plan as an area that could support that. Based on its access to the interstate, it is serviced by utilities, water and sewer. There's an interstate interchange here. So this area, and close proximity to downtown and the airport. So this was an area that was felt could support more of a transitional residence style. Now, this is new from the 2011 comp plan, and again, it's identified as transitional residence, which is defined in the plan, but transitional residence does respect the density of surrounding development, but allows for a different type of housing option. This is also new from 2011 comp plan, identifying areas along the riverfront that could be used for transitional residence, as well as these areas through here. The yellow is still consistent. Again, the green areas are private or public recreation. A couple of things that have come up. This has, since the adoption draft went out for review, we did circulate this to all the county agencies like we would a zone change. We have heard back from ODOT, who is supportive of the plan. We did hear a couple other comments that I wanted to present to you tonight. And again, this is an adoption draft, and what we plan to do is take your comments or any conditions or anything you would like to see changed, create a separate addendum that will be forwarded to the trustees for their review of the plan, and then once it goes through the process, the final stop would be the Regional Planning Commission. We would have a separate sheet of corrections or additions. So one item that was brought to our attention is on page 14, objective number 2, and then also it's repeated again in page 20 and 21. Objective number 2 talks about strengthening zoning regulations to limit development and govern construction in areas prone to landslides. You may or may not recall, but the late 90s there was a hillside task force that was established in the township that went through this study. And at the time, it was recommended that hillside regulations be enforced at the county level through the Soil and Water Conservation District, through the Hamilton County Earthwork Regulations. So a question mark has been raised as to whether we still go with that recommendation to allow for those to be enforced through the Hamilton County Earthworks Regulations, or to move forward with going through that process again. And it was suggested that we follow the recommendations of the Township's Hillside Task Force and let those regulations stay intact and enforced through the county, through the Soil and Water Conservation District. And it's also through the Hamilton County Earthworks Regulations. And discussion of that is also repeated on pages 20 and 21 in a little bit more detail. So that's one item. The second item was on page 30 and 31. The objective was to study and consider the use of economic development tools, and it gives examples of joint economic development district, tax increment financing district, special improvement district, etc. However, the discussion on pages 30 and 31 only referred to JEDs, so it was suggested that all economic development tools be considered and not just a JED. So instead of it limiting and all of the discussion be focused on a JED, that the study, that the text refer to all economic development tools. And then finally, on the future land use map, the Boatsmith property is this property here, which is for sale. And we've talked to realtors about this property and others that are looking to purchase this property, and it is suggested that the future land use be identified as light industry versus parks, open space, and green space. And again, we're talking about these parcels here. So the current use of the property, well, formerly Boatsmith, there was a boat slip, and then they had buildings on the property that were used for boat repair and storage, which the buildings are more of an industrial character. It's adjacent to Hilltop, which is identified as light industry, and you actually have to access through the Hilltop property to get to Boatsmith, if you've ever been to Boatsmith, but you access it through the Hilltop property, and that's the only access because of the interstate interchange here. The majority of the property is also in the floodplain, so it's recommended that that be changed to light industrial versus parks and open space and green space. So those are the three issues that have come up since your staff report went out. And then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Just one real, on the blue above the entertainment?
Right here.
Yes.
Mhm.
And that is?
That is owned by the Archdiocese of Cincinnati, and it's the St. Joseph Orphanage.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine.
Paul, do they have future plans for that property? I know different people have looked at it over the years.
Not that we're aware of. And they were invited to participate in the steering team as well, and they recently did an addition, I don't know, within the last 5 years, I believe. So we're not aware of any plans to do anything.
And I guess my only other question or comment would be, the last page, I think we need to lose page 49, because it seems to be kind of a marketing piece for Boulevard Strategies.
Yes.
My other comment would be that it just, hopefully something happens down at the River Downs soon, or we're going to be left in the dust there, because the one in Lebanon looks like they're going to open in January, and I would just hope that, money for the township.
Paul, on the transitional housing, what kind of density ranges were?
There are no specific density ranges, and that was a huge discussion in the 2011 comp plan, because there was concern with identifying something like this in the middle of a single-family area. So the discussion, it does lend itself to it does give guidance as to the surrounding area. So the density is, there was a formula based on the surrounding density, and it's in the comprehensive plan. Usually bring that, and I don't have that with me.
I tell you what, this is a lot more complex than the original one we did back in the 90s.
Yes. I'll find that out for you, Matt. Just
Just so y'all know, I was on the original for the riverfront, and we walked over to the, I guess as far east as you could go in the township, and some ways you don't want to be there in July and August. Because my understanding was, years ago, there were many camps there. And of course, they had no facilities. I guess that's the best way to put it, so. But I think this is, I like this. It's comprehensive, it's good.
Paul? I'll find the answer for you on that.
Right.
Please.
Wait, and she has got a question.
Well, an observation. This is my memory of this is dated, but back in the 2004, 2005, I was in a seminar at the, that involved the Army Corps of Engineers, a particular individual, and I mentioned her to Paul. I don't even know if she's still there, but I do know that portion of the Corps is there that concerns itself with the flora and fauna along the banks of the Ohio River. And I also know that at various times they had money that frequently went begging because nobody knew they were there and knew what to do with it. And it just struck me that if, while we're doing all this, it would be worthwhile considering something in the nature of at least looking into potential easements that we could gain along the banks to ensure to the extent that it didn't adversely affect whatever else we were trying to do, that we could maintain some of the existing flora and fauna that along the Ohio River banks. And I don't know if it's doable, but to the extent that it would be nice to have the Riverwalk coupled with an ability to provide for things that normally you would see along the river. You know, if it happened to be a nesting area, or for waterfowl, or for birds in the area, or anything, you know, like the local mussels or whatever else you might see at the riverbank. But just consider that as a possibility, and I'll look into this more and try and get her name to you.
Okay.
But it would run along, it would probably fall under objective 1.4, something to the extent of enhancing opportunities for cultivating flora and fauna on the riverbank through easements and whatever else, other uses you could use.
When we were looking at riverfront development through the study process, it came clear very early in the process that basically from the 52 exit ramp, you know, this whole area is ODOT right-of-way, which is, there's very little room on the south side of Kellogg to do anything because, well, it's all owned by the ODOT for one, but we also looked at if there were areas where there was excess right-of-way and the potential to transfer some of that right-of-way, if the state would be willing to transfer that into private hands for riverfront development. And it was determined that this particular area, there just wasn't enough room and it didn't quite make sense. Now, once you were further east, closer to Claremont County, this is the Steamboat Road area, which has some campgrounds and that sort of thing. So that will remain in recreation. This was an area of new potential transitional residents. This is an industrial area through here, so that is difficult, but, you know, there could be the potential. But needless to say, there is a large portion of the riverfront in the study area that's undevelopable, for better or worse.
I should stop by saying I'm not thinking of development in the way that you are, but to give you an example, frequently with a lot of the islands along the Ohio River, they would reinforce the upper river portion of the islands with, reinforce it to provide for inlets for spawning and all sorts of things. And you'd be you can consider the blue area there, and if you add that into it as a developable region, and think about people boating up and down the river and having the river shore as an area to view, and if you can do things that enhance that, you're still in good shape.
And the only other question that I would have, is that somebody else? I'm sorry.
Well, to answer Matt's question,
Oh.
2.5 times the surrounding density is what the transitional residents recommend. So, looking at the surrounding density, an average 2.5, that's what it recommends. However, it also goes on to explain that, you know, there should be adequate buffers in place so that you're not developing that area right up to a single-family lot, you know, that you create an adequate buffer, that the development's in character with the surrounding area, although it does recommend a higher density.
And what do you need from us?
Any more questions?
I have no more questions.
We need a recommendation to the trustees.
Anybody willing to formulate that as a motion?
I would make a motion that we recommend to the Board of Trustees adoption of Case 2-2012 LUP, which is the Ohio Riverfront Area Plan Update with the modifications that we've discussed here this evening.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Can we call the roll, please?
Mr. Warwick?
Aye, or yes?
Mr. Van Zandt?
Yes.
Mr. Canard?
Yes.
Ms. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Hemsworth?
Yes. And before we adjourn...
Thank you.
Hmm?
Thank you.
You're welcome. And before we adjourn, do we have anything knowingly for November?
I don't know of anything coming through. If there is a meeting, it will be on the 26th.
Okay, do we have a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.